U.S. President Donald Trump says he will be raising the issue of arms sale to Taiwan during his talks with the Chinese president in Beijing. In fact, speaking to reporters at the White House earlier, Trump confirmed the agenda for his meeting with his Chinese counterpart, signaling that Taiwan security will be a key point of discussion. This is what he said.
Do you think we should still be selling them weapons? The United States.
Well, I'm going to have that discussion with President Xi. President Xi would like us not to, and I'll have that discussion. That's one of the many things I'll be talking about.
China considers Taiwan as a breakaway province, remember, while Taiwan rejects that claim and maintains its own democratic government. The United States follows a one China policy, acknowledging Beijing's position without endorsing it, while remaining Taiwan's most important international backer and legally committed to supporting its defense. Arms sales to Taiwan have long been a flashpoint in the U.S.-China relationship. In December 2025, Trump announced a record-breaking defense package for the island, valued at more than $11 billion, marking the largest such deal in U.S. history. In recent days, U.S. officials have reportedly urged Taiwan to further boost its defense spending. Despite rising tensions, a U.S. official said that Trump-Xi talks do not signal any shift in Washington's Taiwan policy.
In
fact, China's foreign ministry reiterated its long-standing opposition to U.S. arms sale to Taiwan, saying discussions with Washington will cover major bilateral and global issues. A spokesperson adding that China's position remains consistent and clear.
During President Donald Trump's visit to China, the two heads of state will have an in-depth exchange of views on major issues concerning China-US relations as well as world peace and development. China's opposition to the United States' sale of weapons to China's Taiwan region is consistent and clear.
Let's go straight across now to Susan Tehrani, who's been tracking that crucial Trump visit to Beijing and is joining us live on the broadcast. Susan, first up, let's just talk about the backdrop against which this high-stakes summit is taking place. We are looking at a time when the Iran war, of course, continues to be one of the key geopolitical concerns when it comes to the kind of ramifications it really has economically and otherwise as well. But speaking specifically about what Washington expects to really extract from this visit by the American president, help us understand what exactly the United States is looking at.
So, as you mentioned, this is really a high-stakes meeting with the fog of the Iran war hovering over the meeting between Xi Jinping and President Trump, the last which President visited China in 2017. It's the issue of Iran, global shipping, and of course, technology competition as well. When it comes to Iran, President Trump, leaving Washington, said that he does not need China's help in resolving the Iran crisis, Iran's nuclear ambitions, and said that the United States will handle it one way or the other through diplomacy or war. He did, however, say that he's going to have a long discussion and a long conversation about Iran with President Xi. The reason perhaps President Trump said that is not surprising, considering the fact that it's hard to imagine that China would in any way give any leeway to Washington when it comes to dealing with Iran. Not only is China Iran's biggest oil customer, about 90% of Iranian oil goes to China, but also a few years ago, you may remember that China and Iran signed a strategic friendship and partnership pact outward of $400 billion. Now, that hasn't come into fruition as of yet. However, that just signals how invested China is not only in Iranian oil, but also in other aspects of the Islamic Republic as well. But nonetheless, perhaps what the president hopes and will accept is China's more colorful mediation efforts in trying to bring an end to this war, and trying to find a resolution to its nuclear program. A few days ago, there were reports that Iran had agreed to send out the so-called nuclear dust to one country and one country only should a deal happen with the United States. And that country was China. So whether or not there's going to be any deliverables regarding that, we'll have to wait and see. But, you know, while President Trump frames Xi Jinping as a friend and having cordial relationships, it's hard to imagine that Xi also views President Trump in that manner, and he would forego any of his interests economically, geopolitically, to, you know, serve that kind of friendship that President Trump believes he has with Xi Jinping. And remember, these two men are very ideologically apart when it comes to how they view the world and how they view the world being run. But regarding Iran, those are the issues that are going to be at hand. I think while China has been mediating behind closed doors when it comes to the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and of course it's to its benefit, Pakistan has sort of been in the headlines. I think after this trip, willingly or unwillingly, China may have to play a more colorful role. And that's, again, something that his personality doesn't want. But I think for the issue to be resolved, China will ultimately have to play a leading role. But that's as far as it'll go. I don't think we're going to see, you know, China sticking its neck out for Washington to try to sway Iran one way or the other.
Right. I also want to discuss with you the optics as far as this visit is concerned. You know, we're talking about the American businessmen as a part of that delegation being a huge point of discussion even before the visit. So what exactly is the kind of message that the U.S. is trying to send out with that inclusion?
Yeah, you know, these American businessmen that are going there, we have to understand that artificial intelligence is really going to be heavily dominating this trip, discussions about the future of artificial intelligence. And it could be actually a segment and a part of this trip where we'll see some deliverables. The summit is focused on AI, on semiconductors, on advanced manufacturing, on cloud computing and supply chains. And taking these American tech leaders really signals that the technology and tech leadership here in the United States is completely intertwined with the geopolitical realities of today's world, notably US-China relations. And there has to be a rebalancing of the economies, according to the White House and the United States. Right now, China has an import surplus. It's the only way that its economy can thrive and survive, but it is flooding American markets, and the United States is not able to do that in China. And these tech leaders really rely heavily on China and want to do business with China, but there has always been a steel wall that they face. And also, these tech executives are also increasingly being viewed as strategic actors, as sort of individuals that will not only perhaps sway China to open its markets, but also talk about the potentials that, you know, having American businesses in China will have for China at a time when China's economy is facing hurdles. It is looking powerful. It's in a way surpassing the United States when it comes to robotics and batteries and a lot of technologies. It has the world's largest naval fleet. However, when you go deeper into China, the Chinese economy with youth unemployment on the one hand and weak consumer spending on the other is really suffering. And its only avenue out is to be a heavily imported economy as opposed to, you know, using those goods for inside the country. And I think that's where these tech leaders come in.
Right. Susan, of course, we'll continue to closely monitor the developments coming in on that front. We're leaving it there for the moment. Of course, those are just some of the many sticking points when it comes to this visit. Let's also take a look at this report sent by the CGTN correspondent regarding this crucial visit.
Will be the second face-to-face meeting between the leaders of China and the U.S. since last October in Busan. And it will be the first visit to China by a U.S. president in 9 years. The two leaders are expected to hold in-depth talks on major issues affecting China-U.S. relations, as well as global peace and development. President Trump will also visit the Temple of Heaven right behind me, a historic site with over 600 years of history and rich cultural significance. It is the largest remaining imperial temple complex from the Ming Dynasty. And the Hall of Prayer for a Good Harvest, one of the most famous buildings here, was where emperors of the Ming and Qing dynasties would pray for good harvests and national peace. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun said that head of state diplomacy plays an important strategic role in guiding China-US relations. China is ready to work with the US in a spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit to expand cooperation, manage differences, and bring more stability and certainty to a world facing many uncertainties.